Hi there, Eric the Car Guy. For today's lesson we have a 1999 Pontiac Grand Am that we are going to replace the front struts on. So come along with me on this wonderful adventure of strut replacement. Now I'm also replacing the upper bearing plates, and the upper bearing plates allow the struts to pivot back and forth when you steer the car. In this particular case, this one's making a noise when you steer from one side to the other. It does it occasionally. That's what we have on tap today. I hope that this can be informative to you, and let's get started. Why would you make a seat? A big hunk of metal that sticks out right where you sit down. That hurt. First thing we're going to do in this is heal our behinds and open up the hood. Put the key in the accessory position. The reason for this is you want to be able to move the front wheels back and forth. I'm going to be using air tools today. Some of you may have them, some of you may not. Particularly when compressing the spring to get the strut off of, or to get the spring off of the strut, air tools will be particularly useful. If you don't have air tools, the only suggestion that I might have is that you might be able to save some money by taking the struts off the car yourself and then taking them to a facility to have the struts mounted on the new springs, because this can be very dangerous. I've known people that have gotten hurt pretty badly, particularly during the process of compressing the springs. I'll show you what I'm going to use that I think is actually kind of dangerous, but if done properly, you can get away with it. What we're looking for right here, these strut towers. These are the fasteners that hold the top of the strut in place, or the bearing plate, and this fastener right here is for the strut. So don't loosen this until you have the spring compressed. They're on both sides of the car. For the next part, I'm going to jack the vehicle up and put it on jack stands. The car is really low. I can take this off. I'm going to take the wheels off. The next part, you have the fasteners up top, but on the steering knuckle assembly here, this is where the strut actually attaches. So there are these two fasteners that pass through. So you want to remove these two fasteners from here, and then this will pull forward. Okay, I'm going to remove the fasteners going through the strut. These bolts seem to be very happy where they are. Instead of hitting the bolts themselves, hit the knuckle that it goes through. If you're going to be swinging a hammer, put these on. Okay, cool. This top one, gonna get no fastener. I'm gonna knock the strut off of here. You have to be careful of things like your brake lines. Sometimes there's an ABS wire here, that kind of thing. But now the strut is loose from the knuckle. I'm now going to remove the fasteners on the top of the strut while holding the strut underneath. Got me a strut. Before you go through all the time and effort of taking the spring off, real good idea check your new struts. Notice the difference. This one will not go on the car. This is a good time to know this. If I'd waited and taken the strut apart, say I couldn't get the correct strut, then that could have been a problem. So make sure that you check your parts before you start taking things apart. And we're back. Okay, now we have a strut. It looks like the old strut. Good idea to check that out. Now, we gotta get these things apart. The way I choose to do this is to take the strut and put it in my vise and squeeze the heck out of it. I just get it to the point where it's gonna stay in there. Okay. These are spring compressors. The particular set that I have comes in a pair. Is this the safest way to do this? I don't think so. But it is a way to do this. The danger that you run into is that as these things, the way you hook these up is like this. You hook this in like this on one side, and then on the opposite side you're trying to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you can get them on opposite sides. Fortunately, it doesn't look like this one's going to work out too well. But the idea is to compress the spring so that you can get the strut out from under the spring. This spring holds up 1/4 of the weight of that car, so there's a lot of energy. You really have to be careful of these things going from one side to the other. So I'm going to hook this up in the safest way that I can and try to demonstrate how I would swap this out. Now, once again, like I said earlier, you can always take these to, well, I can't say that you can always, but you might want to consider, once you get the struts off the car, taking them someplace that has a proper spring compressor that is a lot safer, would save you possibly serious injury. So you just want to make sure, well, not that you just want to make sure, you need to make sure that you do this safely, because if not, you could get hurt pretty badly, especially with tools like this. In fact, I'm reluctant to even show the use of these tools, but it's what I have. Okay, this could get loud, so if the audio cuts out. Now that that stuff is compressed, you can take the top nut off. Maybe easier said than done. These struts are going bye-bye, so I don't care, but you cannot do this with the new struts. What is happening is as I'm trying to knock this loose, the shaft is spinning, which is why I said if you don't have air tools, forget it. top comes off. This rubber piece comes off. And then of course the spring. This is like a loaded bomb. Extremely careful. This little guy, don't worry about this little guy. You have rubber spring mount. If you don't reuse this, the spring metal to metal contact could cause some noise, so you want to reuse this. This has a type of strut where you need to unlock it because it's obviously compressed for packaging. I think you just turn it in the clockwise direction and poof. It's happy to see me. I will take a new strut and compress it a few times. There are some struts that are out there that if you don't do this, first few bumps you go over will be boom, 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 and bang around because it hasn't been primed. So give this a shot whenever you do this. Just a few times ought to do it until there's equal resistance in both directions, because that's what it does. These dampers, in effect, they take the bouncy spring motion and dampen that force to slow it down, both going up and down. And it does this by utilizing a small disc inside a disc within the strut itself. This whole chamber is filled with oil, and that disc has a bunch of tiny holes in it, and it restricts the flow of the oil that's inside here as it passes through those small passages. And that's what makes it move or dampen the force, is it's basically fluid passing through a small passage that does that. Next we'll get our bomb. Now I want you to see this. Right here is where the spring sits, and that's where you're going to put the lower part of the spring back on. That's an interesting shot. Okay, this will give you a better view from up top of what I'm doing. Once again, loaded bomb. You want to make sure that that sets right down in the crease of that rubber that was there before. Because the bearings on this are out and are pretty much junk, I am going to be replacing them. These are the bearings here, so your wheel or your front wheels turn on this, and it's pretty gritty and yucky. You need all these parts. But this one obviously is the first one and has a groove for the spring. Sits in there. I don't see where these are marked. These new ones are marked left and right, but that may be the case. And same with the struts, they may be marked left and right. I'm not seeing that here. Also on some struts you might notice that there's a slot on the inside there and a slot on the strut that is supposed to fit together. If you don't get those two things together, the strut will not work properly. Looks like this new bearing assembly I want to reuse this old plastic shroud, plus there's a bumper down inside here. I want back. Looks like I have to get a screwdriver to pry it out. Okay, that worked. I just pried out on this top, and the top part of the bearing came off. So I was just able to pull it out of the bottom. I'm say that I can slip it right back up into the new one. Inside here there's a rubber bumper. That's important, because if the strut ever bottoms out, like you hit a really deep pothole or something, that rubber bumper is going to help protect everything up there. So I'm just going to slip it in. Try to. Slip it in. This looks like a job for lubricants. When I'm trying to put rubber stuff together, use silicone spray. And this may not be rubber, but it's plastic. Everything goes together better with lubricants. There you go. Now, take the new bearing assembly and put it in. I don't know if this is gonna, yeah, it is. Push down in and be held together. I see a slot in this rubber. I see a slot in the top of this. I'm gonna take those two, do my best to put them together. The idea here is you want to try to realign everything the same way it was, or to the best of your ability. They were sneaky. They took a bolt, stuck it down on the spring side. Guess they were trying to mess me up. Now this one does not have a shoulder or anything up here, so looks like this is how it fits together. They give you new bolts, new fasteners when you do this. It's that plastic stuff on the inside. It's supposed to lock it in. The new bolts, or new nut, has things on it to help lock it on the top of this. You don't want this to come apart. Okay, run it down. All right, now it's on there a little bit, but not all the way. But I don't want to use the vice grip trick here, because if I do, I run the risk of hurting the shaft and rupturing the seal inside the strut and just creating a leak. So what I'll do is I'll put just a little bit of tension on the spring, loosen it a little bit. Hopefully what that's going to do is that's going to put enough tension here to let me tighten it all the way down. When I took this out, there were 2 nuts in the back, and then I had a bolt here. Top of this strut has 2 studs and a hole, so this helps align it. See how this is curved in here? How there's a bigger gap here than there is here? This thing has to sit inside the car in just the right way so that everything hooks up. So knowing that the stud or the bolt goes in the outer, that's what we want to do. So I'm going to fish it up through there. Nut. Bolt. These, I think, are just designed this way so that they don't come loose. I think that's the philosophy behind it. That's pretty much it. Now that I have the lower fasteners on there and the upper fasteners on there, you're done. You can put the wheel back on. Then it's time to do the other side. I'm going to put the wheels back on, let the car down, take it for a test drive, make sure the noise is gone. But pretty straightforward. The main things to watch out for, or particularly when you're using the spring compressors, they can be dangerous. You have to make sure that you're using them properly. Also, there's other types out there that actually lock onto the spring, because what you're worried about is as you put tension on the spring, if it slides from one direction to the other and allows the spring to open up at least on one side. But the bigger around the spring is, the less apt you are to have a problem, or the easier they will be to compress. It's the smaller ones, like say on Hondas, those things they have to compress the heck out of. Those are fun. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward to get the wheels and everything back on. Like I said, any questions or comments, you can always visit me at EricTheCarGuy.com. And I hope this video was helpful to you, and have a great day. Be safe and stay dirty.